Taken place in India's northeast. While the struggle to bring back normalcy and peace in Manipur continues, the last insurgent group in Mizoram has laid down its arms. This 57-year-long struggle and its end means that Mizoram is finally insurgent-free. 43 cadres of the HMAR People's Convention have laid down their arms and decided to join the mainstream. An arms-laying ceremony was held as the group surrendered its weapons. To better understand why this is historic, it is important to remember that Mizoram once declared itself independent in 1957, and now after 6 decades, it has been put on a path of peace and progress. We'll talk about this with a few guests, but before that, let me also rope in Nibir Deka, our Assam Bureau Chief, who's going to tell us why this feat is historic and why this is also an inspiration to bringing about permanent peace, Nibir, in Manipur.
Well, absolutely. This is one of the few instances of history being made where repeating again in Mizoram, because you see that the peace agreement initially signed between the Mizo National Front and the Indian government is considered to be one of the most successful peace agreements. And today is another historic day in Mizoram because one of the last insurgent groups in the northeast, especially operating within the Mizoram area, the Mar People's Convention, HPCD, they have surrendered with 43 cadres, and their leader, who has been negotiating with the government, had recently signed an agreement on the 14th of April with the Mizoram government. And following the development, this has brought in the surrender of the remaining 43 insurgents, who, including their leader, Lal Himthanga Sanate. So this is indeed a historic development, and the Chief Minister of Mizoram today rightly remarked that it is now a truly peaceful state. So from a time when the insurgency was at its peak in the 1960s, when the Mizo National Front, driven by different aspirations and also negligence in some quarters, began that movement. And from that 1960s to the current scenario, wherein the last insurgent group has now surrendered, shows a transformation of Mizoram, and not just Mizoram but the whole of Northeast, with various peace agreements being signed with different insurgent groups of different states of the Northeast. So indeed it is a historic day. And like they are saying that one of the most historic peace agreements which was done in 1986, this is also a repeat, and this also symbolizes the transformation of Northeast and its integration to the Indian mainstream.
Nibir, thank you for that update. Let me also rope in some guests who are going to shed light on this important development. Joining us on the program is Major General Rajan Kochar, defense expert. Brigadier Vinod Datta, also a defense expert, joins us on the show. Last but not the least, Mr. B. L. Vohra, ex-IPS officer, with us on the program as well. General Kochar, I'll begin with you, sir. How crucially important is this event in your eyes? Mizoram, for the longest time, has inflicted a lot of damage as a result of this sporadic insurgency. In the prism of what's happening in Manipur, what continues to happen in Manipur, how important is this event to you, sir?
Thank you, Vineet. I think it's a landmark event, and having served in Mizoram, I can tell you, and especially at the time when the insurgency was there, and we were deployed in a post like Bungtalang, Parwa, and all those areas. Myanmar border and all, it was a very sensitive area, and that time Mizo National Front was quite active, and at that point of time insurgency was at its peak. So I think it's a very significant development, I would say that, because Mizoram is one of the least populated states in the Northeast, just has a population of around 13 lakhs, and it has mostly Christian people there, and you see the development in the state that 91% is the literacy rate, and the women there are extremely forthright, and you will see them everywhere, enterprising, and all small scale sector, medium scale sector, and all these small industries which are there. Bamboo cultivation is one of their major areas of economy. So I think government has done a very good job because the insurgency had died down for quite number of years. As a matter of fact, Mr. Laldenga at that time, who was heading the MNF, he even became the chief minister of the state. So things had transition, and the neglect of the central government over the years have been arrested now, because at that time, at that point of time, the people were quite unhappy with the state of development or the neglect what the northeast, especially Mizoram, was there. But today I think things have changed, and literacy is one important aspect. Employment is another very good aspect, where people are not now finding your employment in the state. As a matter of fact, I would like to suggest that Mizoram be treated as a model for the northeastern state, especially Manipur, because with all these problems happening in Manipur, Mizoram has not been affected, because Mizo population is predominant here, and it doesn't have that influx of the Metis, Cookies, Nagas, and all that kind of a thing. So it is a relatively, I would say, ethnically is very peaceful state, and of course it's a very sensitive state with the Myanmar border also on it, and the same kind of problems what Manipur has in terms of immigration, illegal immigration and things like that, and the border also not being fenced, because you see, I remember going on a patrol. I'll just share with you, going on a patrol in Bungtalang area, and so moving ahead, you see, I didn't know if I've entered Myanmar. There was just a boundary pillar there, and I could easily enter there. I would easily go 2 kilometers inside, and nobody would challenge me there. So that has been the situation there, and I'm very happy that whatever remnants of the insurgency, though this insurgency was not very predominantly disturbing the government, but nonetheless, these people have come into the mainstream now, and it is very important for the government now also to ensure that those people who you surrender also are brought into the mainstream in a seamless manner, and they are employed, because basically it is the unemployment which brings in all these factors. Poverty is another factor. So now Mizoram is looking up, and I'm glad that your channel has brought out this wonderful program on Mizoram, because it is bound to send a message to Manipur also.
You're absolutely right. Mr. Vora, this statement of sorts is also bound to send a message to Manipur. What message should that be, sir?
We need, first of all, it's a good thing that has happened in Mizoram. Having said that, let me tell you that this was a very small group which was indulging only in criminal activities off and on. It was not a regular insurgent group. And they were, of course, wanting an autonomous district council. Earlier, they were a part of a bigger group. But having said that, good thing that has happened, and credit must go to the Chief Minister, who was earlier an IPS officer of 1977 batch and was close to the Gandhi family, and he had worked in SDG and SPG also at that time. He was inducted into the Congress, he resigned, and then he became an MP, and thereafter floated his own party. So dynamic person, he's done very well, and he's doing very well for Mizoram. Having said that, Manipur and Mizoram can't be compared. See, Manipur is a homogeneous group. Basically, they are under the all Mizo umbrella, Hamas and others. Whereas in Manipur, the problem is 3 communities. Manipur, as you know, Metis, Cookies and Nagas. Now that is why Manipur has been having problem for decades. I first went there in 1980 as a DIG, And at that time also the peak was at its insurgency. But then of course its character changes all the time. At that time multi-insurgent groups were very powerful. Even in the streets of Imphal there used to be firing by them. And later on of course we had Pathis versus Cookies, and now we are having of course Cookies versus Mathis. Because they're not homogeneous group. In Mizoram they were homogeneous group. That is what is the issue. Even in Tripura also, where I was DGP, luckily we were able to turn around the corner of insurgency. So that is why Manipur is going to be a little difficult for a long time to come. It has been there for a long time to come. So I think lot of attention, maturity, hard work, continuous vigil on all fronts, international, diplomatic, with Myanmar, all this and that is required. Another thing which I wanted to tell you was to compliment you and NewsX for covering this thing, because no other channel I'm sure is covering these kind of developments in the Northeast, which are very significant from their point of view. See, in a smaller state, even a small problem is a very, very big problem. For them, it was a very big problem. So I'm glad that you are giving a national focus to this problem. Now I have given you this. Now the only two frontiers remain. One is the Manipur, which has been there, which will be there. Of course, dimensions will differ, the level of violence will differ, and Nagaland. Nagaland again, homogeneous group. There's a peace agreement, as you know, with NSCN. One group is having a little problem, the Kaplang problem, but there's no violence, though extortion is going on, and they are having their own separate government also. And talks are going on for long, stuck for two basic issues. They want to have a constitution and a flag of their own, which the government of India is not allowing. So I think overall, good development for the Northeast, but I don't think it is going to have any impact on Manipur or on any other state. Vineet.
Brigadier Datta, so what are your submissions when it comes to this development? Manipur, of course, like our previous guests mentioned, is a lot more complicated than Mizoram is.
Yeah, good evening, Vineet. Yes, I agree with Mr. Vora that the dynamics which are there in Manipur, I mean, it is a different ballgame. Regarding Mizoram, firstly, we want to congratulate the government, both at center and the state level, that they have been able to, sort out these issues and iron out the kinks which were there. Another feather in the cap of the government is at central level is the red corridor, which has been totally been addressed. And if you see Chhattisgarh, Abuj Mart and that area, I mean, there has been mass surrenders, and the Maoist terrorists or the anti-national elements, they have really surrendered. So now Northeast as it is, if you see insurgency was rampage. In 1982, I was there. And when we were, operating in that area, it was really very difficult to even, move from one state to another. Of course, Nagaland was quite peaceful, and it was like a paradise. Now, Mizoram, if you see 19, Laldenga himself, he was an ex-army Havaldar, and who later on became a clerk in the state administration. So he was spearheading the movement by the name of MNF, and they were basically looking for sovereignty for an independent state. And later on it was granted also. Now with these kind of talks, with these kind of, you see, a major portion of Mizoram was cool and calm and collected. But with these smaller groups, as Mr. Vora has rightly brought out, that they were basically indulging in small-time jobs or some kind of theft and all. Nevertheless, it's a good, step by the state government. And the credit goes to the present Chief Minister, who's an IPS officer, Lal Doma. And, his constant efforts have now shown because if India has to really keep the dynamics of our security imperatives, we have to keep the Northeast under the control, and it has to be sorted out, because the forces which are there, I mean, if you see the kind of environment India is living. I mean, there's nobody with us except Bhutan, and Bhutan also, I mean, know that. I mean, India has a very fair amount, having been, advisor there. Now, if we really want to progress and we want to keep our borders, off from all these problems, these states have to be really addressed. And Manipur is another state which has to be addressed on a war footing, because if it is not addressed, the people will try to permeate into other states and try to create, especially in the border areas. So the government focus should be there, because even opposition has been accusing the present government that the Prime Minister has not been giving that kind of attention to Manipur, otherwise things would have been sorted out. Notwithstanding that, yes, the things are on the card, and it's a very welcome step that peace and normalcy has returned to Mizoram, and it is going to be a peaceful state.
Jill Kocher, what about the role of foreign actors, that have been established when it comes to Manipur? How do you think that the case study of Mizoram has or can be replicated in Manipur, if at all it can be?
Vineet, that's a very interesting question, and also very, very challenging aspect, because if you see why Mizoram became peaceful and the other states have struggled. You see, one important is the Mizo identity, because when I was there, they are very proud tribe, a proud set of you people who absorbed many sub-tribes. See, in Manipur, if you study the demographic structure of Manipur, there are a large number of sub-tribes who have not been absorbed into their main sect. So what we saw in Mizoram was that all these sub-tribes got absorbed with the Mizo identity. The second important aspect, the 1986 peace accord, it addressed the political aspirations of all the people, which possibly we are not seeing, because you see, in Manipur we have assembly of 60 seats are there, and if you look at the valley as well as the hills and all, so it is a disproportionate representation in Manipur of the particular tribes, because 40% of 40 seats normally go to the Metis, because of the demographic structure, the way Manipur is structured, and Kukis and Nagas are only 20 seats. So you will always find the political aspiration of the people not addressed. You will always find a government in Manipur, most of the times it will be a Methi dominated government. So obviously the people of the other tribes feel that their concerns are not being addressed, which possibly in Mizoram it didn't happen. Then also very strong civil society in Mizoram, especially if you look at the churches and the community bodies, they have retained the authority there. And I think this religious part of it is very important. The last point you mentioned was extremely important, foreign interference, because we have seen this happening in Manipur, but we have not seen it happening in Mizoram, because it is the governance model which also should be discussed here, that what kind of a governance model a particular state has, and what we saw in Manipur, that model has not yet been formalized. There are a large number of issues concerning, like scheduled caste issue, which came up in the High Court, and actually a boomerang. The problems, if you look at the problems of the state, border management is a common issue. Refugee inflows is also a common issue. And arms and narcotics smuggling is also a common issue. Then how come Mizoram has been able to control it, and why not Manipur? So I think a deep dive a deeper drive has to be seen into the political structure of Manipur, that possibly there are some mafias who are closer to the centers of power, who have been able to uh, 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 it has been you able to manage this sort of a situation where narco terrorism and narco drugs and the golden crescent, as we talk about, is very much there, because Myanmar is a border state. Forces on the border in Myanmar are basically the rebels. You can call it the Chin National Army, or you can call it the Arakan Army, or on to the other side towards China, it is the Kachin National Army. So the military junta really does not have any control over the borders in Myanmar. So this problem is common to both the states. So I think possibly the trust deficit which is existing in Manipur today, where these communities are not trusting each other, will have to be resolved. You cannot keep quiet. Brigadier Datta also mentioned this, because there has to be things done on a war footing. 60,000 people in Manipur have been displaced and are still staying in refugee camps. You have a buffer zone within the state. I heard of a buffer zone on the India-China border, but here we have a buffer zone within our own state. So all these things are very disturbing. 2,500 people have been killed. The schools and colleges mostly remain closed, and the people from the valley to the hills are not able to commute freely. So all these aspects, I think, need a greater deliberation.
Mr. Vora, do these items, need to be deliberated further? And what about, the government's stance now, considering the fact that so much has been tried and tested in Manipur, nothing has worked. What about out-of-the-box thinking? Perhaps something that has been done in a place like Mizoram.
We need actually government of India, first thing, neglect. It has been, Northeast has been neglected, here also it was neglected. Manipur, if you see the national politics, is a very, very small portion. So I think neglect was continuous. Two, I think political considerations overweighed the requirements. A chief minister was allowed to continue for a very long time because he belonged to the ruling party, even though his partisan credentials had also come over ground and everybody knew about it. I think, problem was there initially. That is basically because of drug lords. I mean, if you go to the back, the whole history, those people in Manipur, because Myanmar had problems, so they walked over here with kith and kin. They started cultivating opium in Chudachandpur. The locals joined. Of course, Maithis and some Nagas also joined. When government came to know of it, it started identifying the foreigners. Drug lords got alarmed. Their budget is thousands and thousands of crores more than the government of Manipur. They were looking for an opportunity. Unfortunately, the High Court's judgment, which of course only said that consider, he did not say give ST status to Maithis, but these people twisted, and as you know, then the rest followed. Problem was there, but then it was initially not handled properly. Thousands of weapons went away, and the communities became partial, officers became partial. They handed over themselves weapons which are still there out in the domain. And of course, then fishing by China and Pakistan and all those things are there. So I think initial handling was not done properly. Now they are trying to make an effort. There's a lot of lost ground which they are trying to recover. This will have to continue. This momentum will have to continue at a much bigger scale. And I think exclusive attention to Manipur all the time, apart from national politics and national problems, is required, which unfortunately government is unable to give because of various other commitments, but a way out has to be found out.
Fair enough, sir.
As the way out, I repeat again, it will be good to have two things. Let's have president rule. have it for 1 year, if not more, have the best of people from any field from all over India, send the partial officers, the Manipuri officers, whether they're Maithis or Pukis, send them all out on deputation and let these people run the show. Every penny must be accounted for. You know, a lot of budget gets leaked in those states, especially in Manipur.
Right, sir. Right, sir. I
Because
completely
lot of
concur
local
with you, sir. We
politicians-
do have a paucity of time, but I appreciate what you have brought to the table, sir, and would like to thank our other guests as well for joining us.